Hello and welcome, fellow Marvel fans, to the Snark Industries podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Remy.
And we invite you to join us as we work our way through every Marvel TV show, movie, and crossover, meaning if there's a Marvel character on screen, it's fair game. All categorized in the temporal order of their setting. By the time we're done, we'll have built a complete start-to-finish timeline of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. To accomplish this goal and to have a bit of fun along the way, each episode will be split into two parts, the Watch Party and the Deep Dive. If you're hearing this, you found one of our deep dives. This is where we slow things down and take a more pragmatic, in-depth look at a piece of Marvel media. We'll walk through the full plot, explore connections to the wider MCU and Marvel Comics, highlight Easter eggs, unpack lore, and of course, give you our own personal thoughts and feelings. Although this episode stands on its own, it is designed to complement the Watch Party. So, if you haven't watched along with us yet, we highly recommend starting there first and coming back here for the full breakdown. Most importantly, we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us on this incredible journey. We're not affiliated with Marvel in any way, shape, or form. We're just fans who are passionate about these stories and these characters and wish to share them with everyone in a new and exciting way. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Snark Industries.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've just watched Eyes of Wakanda, Legends and Lies. John, why don't you go ahead and take it off with the synopsis?
Absolutely. So I think that first thing I'd like to mention before we actually get to the breakdown of the episode itself is, apart from the first one, this episode actually had a different director and writer.
Oh, I missed that.
Which I felt was interesting, and it will become more interesting as we continue on down the episodes later on. But for now, we'll just say different writer and director. So Legends and Lies takes place in around the 1200s BC during the Trojan War. What we have here is the story of another Wakandan, Bakai, who goes by Memnon as he fights alongside the Greeks in the Trojan War. And so we have this insertion of a Wakandan militant being part of the Greek army, and ultimately the story of the Iliad, which is kind of what we get a snippet of, which is a very interesting take as we go into a real, common, well-known story that people are already familiar with and try to tie it into with these characters and there. So, they go through and they show he fighting along Achilles. They're very clearly close throughout the thing. And you kind of follow along as they try to breach the walls of Troy unsuccessfully. We all know this part. And ultimately Odysseus, who was there as well.
Semi-successfully, but they were called back.
Well, right. I mean, they handled their little portion, but the Greek army as a whole would be defeated if they kept going forward, because they weren't able to have the same success, which is kind of what I meant. They're unable to, as an army, get over the walls. So They come back, they retreat. Odysseus has the great idea to build this horse, load it full of soldiers, send it inside, let those soldiers come out and let the rest of the army in. So we kind of all know how that story plays out. I think that anybody who attended school at any point during their life is aware of this story.
Or likes good movies.
We had a lot of time. Or likes good movies, I was literally about to say, or that anyone who's ever seen the Brad Pitt rendition of Troy has done this. So, but ultimately we get towards the back half here, we get Bakai here, who's got obviously some ulterior motives. He's got some sort of device that is allowing him to communicate, which is clear is being used to send back to Wakanda. He is an operative that is undercover here to gather a artifact that has been taken, that has been lost, that has been somethinged, and is now here. And it turns out that Helen has this necklace, this artifact, which is a necklace, and Bakai goes in, convinces her that he wants it, needs it, and that he'll let them go. Both her and Paris, who are fleeing the city as the Greek attack happens, and she agrees, and Achilles sees this happening and ultimately feels betrayed, realizes that Bakai has been lying to him about something. He's not really quite sure what, but sees this necklace, sees him letting ultimately the enemy of Greece go. And they have a fight out in the courtyard outside of Helen's bedroom area. And, it's shown very clearly, very quickly that this artifact is vibranium. Achilles tries to attack it, and of course it absorbs that energy, kinetic energy, which we know this metal can do. And long story short, we have a change in ultimately what everyone would know is the thing. Not only this character Bakai being inserted, but ultimately is the one who kills Achilles, who is unable to relent about this artifact and it going back to Greece. And so Bakai then takes it back, and we do have a brief conversation once he returns back to Wakanda sometime later. I believe 6 months was the time frame after this battle with Achilles. He talks to Noni, talks about how he feels like a stranger. It doesn't, feels out of place. Apparently he's been gone for 9 years undercover with the Greeks working on this. But
that's wild.
And doesn't want to be here. So, the idea is that he's going to be sent off on another mission, and this sort of cycle of sending out these agents, these war dogs, and everything else to go and to get these artifacts and bring them back to keep Wakandan technology outside of the world continues here, and of course will continue as we continue to go through the various things of Wakanda through these episodes.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because the first episode took place 60 years prior to this. And the next one, if I'm not mistaken, is nearly 1,000 years later, maybe 2,000.
That's actually significantly more than that. Yeah. So the next episode, of course, we'll get to that, is called Lost and Found. And it is at 1400 CE, the Common Era. So
yeah, the next episode in Eyes of Wakanda, but the next episode we'll be watching is actually going to be
right. Well, that's what I meant. Yeah, we're going in temporal order, as everyone knows at this point, hopefully. But yeah, for this actual show, if you're watching it in that form, yeah, the next episode of Eyes of Wakanda is Lost and Found 1400 CE. So
looking forward to seeing what that's got.
Absolutely, as do I, and we'll get there. And so, but in the meantime, let's talk about this episode and how it ties into the MCU, in general, and everything else. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, similarly to the first episode, the biggest tie-in to the MCU is obviously just Wakanda. There's no, even the amulet, we didn't see any Easter eggs like we did the pickaxe from the first episode. I didn't pick up anything that was primarily Marvel, something that I could identify from the movies or comics or anything like that. So this was actually, I think, less tied in to the MCU, with the exception of tying it to Noni and by Noni tying it back to the MCU. So it was simply a story told out of time, which was kind of cool. It was almost entirely standalone, and I kind of dug it. Yep. But it does still take place in the main Marvel MCU, which is cool.
Agreed. And I see that, an expansion, just to kind of expand on that just a smidge, an expansion of kind of the theme of not only the show that we have here, but of Wakandan history in general, of being this isolationist at all costs. We have this fight between Bakai and Achilles that obviously was very emotional for both of them. Achilles more angry and hurt, betrayed, and Memnon knowing that it wasn't really about Achilles, but still had to uphold his duty to his country.
Right.
Was meant to sort of facilitate some of these feelings of heaviness that comes from two ultimately brothers in arms having to go at each other because of different allegiances and things. So interesting to expand on that. I think a bold move too to expand it into actual
such a well-known story,
world lore. Yeah,
but well done.
So, but yes, well done in terms of tie-ins to the MCU. I think you hit the nail on the head there. So that's how it's tied in. And how about for comics in general, for those that prefer to expand their horizons outside of just the television and movie theater?
Yeah, I did a bit of deep diving for this one, and I did not find a single comic book tie-in. Obviously, there are tie-ins to, as you noted, real world events. Yeah, as far as comics are concerned, these are completely original characters. There was nothing I found. I mean, last time we saw the War Dogs, we saw the Dora Milaje, we saw things that were very familiar to us. Beyond Wakanda itself and the overall mission of Wakanda, the secrecy, yada yada, et cetera, there really isn't much of a tie-in. So yeah, this is very much a standalone. I didn't see any Easter eggs, and I could be very wrong. There could be Easter eggs hidden, maybe some carvings on a sword or some nonsense like that, but I certainly didn't pick anything up.
Interesting enough, I don't think that I did either. And so yeah, we had episode 1, which was already very loosely tied in, original characters, original story. This one, as you said, and I agree with, even more so of a standalone story, which I'll be interested to explore further with the different director and writer here. And as I said, the later episodes where the episode 1 director writer, episode 2 director writer has some tie-ins.
Yeah.
Where they do some things together, they collab a little bit for the further final 2 episodes. We'll get to that when we get to that, but interesting and something to look at, I think.
And I look forward to as we progress through these, obviously because we're watching them in, as you said, a temporal order. I'm looking forward to seeing these things that we're starting to see, and I'm wondering if in future projects that they're going to pick up names like Noni or Bakai, or some characters might be brought to the forefront as a nod in future projects. I'd love to see this more tied in in just kind of a tip of the hat way in future films or projects.
Absolutely. All right. Well, why don't we spend a few minutes here talking about our thoughts and feelings? I think, obviously we do a little bit of that already, but
yeah, why don't you take it away?
Yeah. So for me, I enjoyed the episode. I thought that it was similar to episode 1, very well written in terms of how it flows, the choreography of the fight scenes and everything else was really cool. It was neat to once again get an entirely different, as we talked before, we had the Vikings, we had the Japanese, some samurai influence, we had, and here we have the Greek, sort of this Greco-Roman style motifs and soldiers and different things. I thought that was interesting. In terms of the overall show itself, I would say that I like this one less than episode 1. And the reason I say that is because I don't appreciate pulling something from a story and changing it to fit your own goals. So I didn't necessarily mind Bakai being a part of the Grecian army. Grecian army's huge. The idea that, this extra fellow was here. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. And if they had kind of stuck with that, I think that I would have been more okay with it. But this idea that, it was actually this Wakandan guy that killed Achilles.
Yeah, takes anything Paris had and throws it away.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, they're taking a very big, very well-known story and just like, all right, well, we're going to change the end. We're going to the end of the movie. Harry doesn't defeat Voldemort. It's actually
it's Luna.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just like, I get what you were trying to do. I appreciate that you're trying to show that Wakandan history is world history. I think that's a theme of the show. I like that. But the idea that you had to take ultimately a pinpoint of an ending to a real story and take that away from it to make your thing work better, I didn't really love. This is for me the second time that I've seen this. I know for you it was the first. I didn't appreciate that the first time. I thought this was a lot less, still good, still worth watching, but just a lot less in the first episode because of that. They're just taking some liberties on some stuff rather than having a true, unique, story told like Noni in episode 1.
Okay.
So that's my thoughts and feelings. How about you?
You know what? It's funny. I'm sitting on the opposite side of that coin. I thoroughly love it when people take real events from history and fictionize them. I love stories that insert characters and create a reason for something that we're familiar with to have happened. Great examples of this. I'm trying to think of a really good example of this, but this is actually a really silly example, but Lion King 2.5. Did you ever see it?
I don't know if I saw that one.
Okay.
2.5.
Well, it's Lion King. Yeah, it's the Lion King story told from Timon and Pumbaa's view.
Oh, no.
And all the things that happen in that story are at some point attributed to the happenings of Timon and Pumbaa. And I thought it was clever and funny and entertaining. And I love when you take a story that you're familiar with and you insert this, let's be honest, absurdity into it, because it is a known factual story. It is something that we're already familiar with, and you give your own little flavor of twist. I am all for it. I absolutely love that kind of story. I love things that that give you a completely different perspective on something you're already familiar with.
Hey, sure. And, the differences of opinion, which is why they're just that, opinions. And I totally respect that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And yeah, I believe that's about all there is to say. Unless you have something else, I'll just give everybody another big thank you for joining us for the deep dive of Legends and Lies. And we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, you guys have a great one. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us in this episode of the Snark Industries podcast. To join the conversation and further explore the Marvel Cinematic Universe with us, head on over to snarkindustriespod.com. The link will be in the show notes. But with that, we will see you in the next adventure.